And hello guys, and welcome back to another video on our Spitfire Ground School. Today we're going to be learning about the service trials of the Iconic Spitfire and how it all started. And guys, if you do not know what the Spitfire Ground School is a series of videos or a playlist which is going to be going over the history of the Iconic Spitfire. We're also going to be going in depth into the Iconic Spitfire Mark 9, as known as G-IRTY, which we do fly on our channel, which is absolutely amazing. We're going to be teaching you how to start her up, the history, what things do, and how they work. So guys, if you are interested in that, don't forget to keep up with our channel with our lovely playlist, and don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button as always, and don't forget to hit that comment as well if you have any questions or anything you'd like to say to me. Other than that guys, let's enjoy this lovely video of the service trials of the Supermarine Spitfire. On February the 18th, the F.37-34 had been completed and was undergoing engine runs on the hard standing on the River Itchen side of the works at Woolston. Once these were done, the wings were removed and the aircraft was loaded onto a lorry, which took it to the works airfield at Eastleigh for reassembly prior to the maiden flight. After reassembly at Eastleigh, the prototype F.37-34 underwent further engine runs. During the first week of March 1936, the prototype of the F.37-34, as known as Kilo 5054, was in the Supermarine hangar at Eastleigh, undergoing final preparations for the first flight. The aircraft was fitted with a fine pitch wooden two-bladed propeller to give optimum performance for takeoff, and at low speed end of the performance envelope. At that time, the retractable undercarriages were still considered a new feature, so for the initial flights the main undercarriage legs were locked down and that the fairing doors were not fitted. On the 5th of March 1936, Kilo 5054 made its maiden flight. That day the weather was good, clear skies, visibility moderate, too good, and a light wind coming mainly from the southwest. Vickers Company Chief Test Pilot Captain J. Mutt Summers climbed into the cockpit and strapped in, then started the engine. When he was satisfied that all was it should be, he waved away the chocks. Then with a burst of power, the little fighter surged forward over the grass. The first flight took about 20 minutes. During the 3 days following the maiden flight, the fine pitch propeller was replaced by one of those coarse pitch designed to take the fighter to its maximum speed. Undercarriage doors was fitted, the legs unlocked and the mechanism tested. Summers made the second flight on the 1st, during which he retracted the undercarriage in the air. On the following day, he made the 3rd flight. In the course of the initial flight testing, the only real fault found on the new fighter was the rudder horn balance was too large, and as a result the control was acceptably light. At high speed the aircraft became directionally unstable. Otherwise, there was a little to complain about, except that Kilo 5054's maximum speed was well below the 350 miles per hour that had been predicted. It was hoped that this would be increased with the incorporation of certain planned minor modifications and after testing with a selection of different propellers. Early in April, the initial test program was completed and Kilo 5054 had to undergo ground response tests. During the tests, it was found that the wing flutter was liable to occur at speeds somewhat lower than expected. As a result, the never to be exceeded maximum airspeed for the prototype was set at 380 miles per hour indicated. The prototype was to undergo initial modifications at Eastleigh. The main ones were that the size of the rudder horn balance was reduced and at the top of the fins squared off. The carburetor air intake was lowered slightly to increase the ram air pressure, and the engine cowling was strengthened. There had been some problems with it rattling in flight. To raise the maximum lifting speed of the aircraft would require a major structural redesign of the wing. Kilo 5054 was to continue with that wing it had. Also, about this time the Vickers parent company suggested that the Air Ministry accepted a name for the new fighter, the Spitfire. By all accounts, Mitchell himself was not too pleased with the choice. He was heard to say, "It's not the sort of bloody silly name that they would give it." After the modifications were completed, Kilo 5054 was flown again by the test pilot, Jeffrey Quill, on the 13th. Then on the 14th, he conducted high-speed dives to take it to the maximum permissible speed. During the first, he reached 360 miles per hour indicated and found that the aircraft handled perfectly and there was no problems. Quill pulled out, then climbed back to 20,000 feet for the second dive. Again, the airspeed built up rapidly, and as it reached 380 miles per hour, the maximum allowed and equivalent to a true airspeed of 465 miles per hour, there was a loud bang. Gently, the pilot eased the aircraft out of the dive and took it back to Eastleigh. After landing, it was found that the lower fairing of the port undercarriage leg had broken away and stuck and damaged the undercarriage of the fuselage. The damage was not serious, however, and by the following day it had been repaired and the prototype was able to resume trials. At this time, there was a considerable pressure to get the new fighter to the Royal Air Force Trials establishment, Martlesham Heath, as soon as possible. The Hawker fighter, which later became the Hurricane, was already there, and if the Spitfire did not begin service trials soon, it might fail to get an order by default. But at this stage, the Spitfire was still not yet fit to be delivered. Finally, on the 26th of May, everything was ready and Matt Summers delivered the Spitfire to Martlesham. Even at this early stage, the new fighter received special treatment. It was usually about 10 days before the new aircraft came out for its first flight, but there was orders came from the Air Ministry that the prototype was to fly the same day. The first flight in Kilo 5054 at Martlesham was made by Flight Lieutenant, later Air Marshal Sir Humphrey Edwards-Jones. The trial flight of the Spitfire continued a few days, and on the 6th and the 8th, speed trials were flown. During these trials, the maximum speed of the prototype was measured at 349 miles per hour at 16,800 feet, 1 mile per hour more than Jeffrey had recorded 3 weeks earlier. The trials at Martlesham ended on the 16th of June, when Jeffrey arrived to collect Kilo 5054 and take it back to Eastleigh for the press day planned for 2 days later. In a week, Kilo 5054 was ready for the public demonstration. Hugh Edwards-Jones went to Eastleigh to pick it up and fly to Hendon. And on the 27th, he showed the Spitfire off in front of a large crowd at the Royal Air Force pageant there. 2 days later, Matt Summers demonstrated the Spitfire at SBAC show at Hatfield. Public interest in the new fighter was immediate, and the flight magazine waxed lyrical about the show Summers had given at Hatfield. It is claimed, and the claim seems indecisible, that the Spitfire is the fastest military aeroplane in the world. By the 1st of July, the prototype was back at Martlesham and being prepared to resume the service trials. On the 11th of July, Edwards-Jones took the prototype Spitfire up to its highest altitude yet, 34,700 feet, which took him 37 minutes to reach. Towards the end of the series of the trials, Kilo 5054 was fitted with a Fairy Reed 3-bladed metal air screw, and on the 29th of July, Jeffrey journeyed to Martlesham to test it. He found that with the 3-bladed, the takeoff was similar to the wooden 2-bladed air screw, but climbing performance and top speed was slightly worse. The 2-bladed air screw was refitted, and on the 1st of August, Quill returned Kilo 5054 to Eastleigh. The initial service trials was now complete, and the prototype was now fitted with the 8-gun armament and received several minor modifications. Then was followed by spinning trials with different propellers and experiments with aircraft riveting. On the 23rd, the Spitfire was flown back to Martlesham. The main feature of the new series of the trials was to be firing the Spitfire's guns. There was no facilities for this at Eastleigh. On the 26th February, the 4 port guns were tested on the butts and fired perfectly. On the 1st of March, the 4 starboard guns were similarly tested. On this 26th of March, the fighter was taken up to 4,000 feet with a full load of ammunition and the gun was fired again. All functioned perfectly. On the 22nd of March, Kilo 5054 suffered its first major accident. Flying officer Sam McKenna was testing the Spitfire with revised gearing between the stick and the elevators, following complaints of the elevator buffeting when pulling out of loops and tight turns. McKenna made a series of loops, pulling steadily, increasing accelerations up to 4G. Then he dived the aircraft to 350 miles per hour, indicated, and made a tight turns up to 4G. When the trial was complete, however, he throttled back to 1,600 RPM to return to Martlesham. The oil pressure suddenly fell to 0 and the engine began to run roughly and noisily. This condition got steadily worse, so McKenna switched off the engine and decided to make a false landing. He selected a strip of heath land near Sutton beside the Woodbridge Road and glided the Spitfire in with flaps lowered, undercarriage up. Fortunately, the propeller had to come to rest in the horizontal position. The tail wheel touched first and ran along the ground for about 100 yards. Then the fuselage dropped and the aircraft slithered across the ground for a further 50 yards before it came to rest, just 10 yards short of a hole 8 feet deep. Unfortunately, Mitchell would not live long enough to witness his fighter enter service into RAF. At the time, Reginald Mitchell's health has been deteriorating steadily, and since the beginning of 1937, he was able to spend less and less time at Supermarine. An operation to arrest the cancer proved unsuccessful, and the condition was formed to be incurable. Reginald Mitchell died on the 11th of June at the age of 42, a great loss to all who knew him. Then shortly after Mitchell's death, Joe Smith was promoted from chief draftsman to chief designer at Supermarine. On 19th of September, the Spitfire was flown for the first time with an injector exhaust system. The system could provide about 70 pounds of additional thrust, the equivalent of 70 horsepower at 300 miles per hour, almost nothing. It was a useful addition which would increase the speed of the prototype to about 360 miles per hour. Early 1938 saw a series of night flights that resulted in a landing accident on the 15th of March. Though the damage incurred was relatively minor and was quickly repaired with the aircraft ready for flight by the 19th of March, just 3 days after the incident. In the meantime, however, the importance of the prototype had been eclipsed by the maiden flight, the first production Spitfire, Kilo 9787, on the 15th of May. The main prototype was now to prove the effects of the modification considered by the production of the aircraft, the most important of which were modifications intended to solve the nagging problem of providing significant gun heating at high altitude. With the successful completion of the gun heating test, Kilo 5054 ended its role in development of the Spitfire. The flying career of Kilo 5054 came to an end on the 4th of September 1939, the day after England entered the Second World War. The aircraft suffered serious damage while landing. The pilot succumbed to his injuries 2 days later, and Kilo 5054 was never repaired afterward. Thank you guys so much for watching the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed the lovely video of the service trials of the Supermarine Spitfire Kilo 5054. Hope you guys have learned something, guys, and if you do have any questions or would like to look at more of our videos, don't forget to go down in the description to hit that playlist. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and any questions, as always guys, leave in the comments. Other than that guys, see you in the next video. We're going to be going over the serial production of the Spitfire and much more. Don't forget, hit that like and subscribe button guys, and have an amazing day.